Welcome to the Degrassi Kid Podcast. I'm so excited that we're
Yeah.
finally connecting.
Me
Can you,
too.
it's finally happening. We've known each other
Right?
online forever now.
I
Can
really
you,
feel like it's been forever.
oh, can you give us an introduction into your name, where you're from, and the story of how you got into Degrassi?
Of course. So my name is Brianna. A lot of people call me Bree. I am originally from upstate New York, and then now I live in Jersey. And I'm a TV content creator. And how did I get into Degrassi? I feel like I've always been into it. I can't even remember when I started watching it. I just know it was like in the early seasons. Like I want to say it's like that early 2000s. And me and my sister would watch it. And it just seemed so relatable. Like there were so many different teen dramas on at the time that just didn't really seem relatable to me. They were like, I always talk about this, like so much
Hmm.
older portraying teens. So you look at them and they're like 27 playing like a 16-year-old. But with Degrassi, they actually look their age.
Yeah.
So I just started watching with my sister, became obsessed, started talking about it online, and it's just like even now, I've rewatched it so many times. Like
I
too many
wanted to
times.
ask, what is it about it that still keeps you connected to the show today?
I think it's like the nostalgic aspect of it, like going back and just remember the feeling that I felt when I first watched it. And it's also cool because it's like no matter how many times you watch a show, you catch something new each time. So there's that. And it's just such a like comfort show for me. Like there's certain shows that I just watch and no matter how old it is or how many times I've watched it, it just still gives me that like happiness and comfort. I feel like Degrassi is one of those shows, like Law and Order, SVU, oddly enough. Shows for me.
So different ends of the spectrums, but I love it.
And like Friends, same thing with Friends is like that comfort show that I'll just watch a million times. And it's just, I love the characters. I love the character arcs, the storylines, the actors too. I feel like that plays a big role into it because a lot of times where I'm talking about TV shows, it's like you watch it and it's great, but you hear about what they went through behind the scenes. And it's
Yes.
kind of like, oh man, like, yeah, they gave us a great childhood of us watching the show, but they went through a lot where like Degrassi doesn't tarnish that image because they really did just have a great time behind the scenes.
I know. And I also think part of it is probably because they were so young. It was their high school experience. So they had their friends that
Exactly.
they were going to see all the time. That is so cool. The reason that you and I connected, and like you mentioned, you're a content creator. You make TikTok videos about TV shows like Degrassi and Law and Order, and you've amassed over 600,000 followers. Can you give us the history of like, how did this even happen for you? How did you get started with this?
It's so wild. So I always love TV shows. I talk about it when I tell this story. It's just very important for me to for people to understand like why I'm so in love with TV shows. So when I was younger, cancer. I had cancer. So a lot of times I was inside the house. I wasn't able to do a lot or inside of hospital rooms. And like the one thing I could count on was watching TV. Like that was the one thing that was safe. It wouldn't get me sick. It wouldn't be too risky. So I became obsessed with TV and the way it worked. And as I got older, I just became more like interested in the storylines, becoming a screenwriter, or at least talking about shows, becoming a journalist. So when COVID happened, my sister's like, "Well, you would be perfect to go on TikTok and talk about TV." And I was like, like I don't know how that's gonna work. Social media versus like being a traditional journalist, like I don't know. So I gave it a try, and honestly, it just 0 to 100 went from like no followers to like 100,000. I feel like overnight, and just kept building the platform, like connecting with different actors and other people who just share. I think it's the fandom too, like they just share the love for these shows. It was so nice because so often I would talk about like a show and people be like, oh, it's cool, but like to find a fandom where they're like, oh yeah, like I'm obsessed with this character too, and have you seen him in this? So it's just been so great. I've been doing it now for 5 years, doing it full
Wow.
time now for 2 years, and it's given me opportunities I could never have even imagined in my wildest dreams.
That's incredible. I know. I think that's the nice thing. I'm a very niched person. I love Degrassi, and that is pretty much it. But you have
Yeah,
so many different people that you can connect to, and people who also love two different shows at the same time. I think that's
yeah.
awesome. I am curious to hear if your videos, it sounds like it has, if your videos have connected you to any celebrities in the world.
Yeah. So, um, the cast of Degrassi, I actually started to be able to talk to some of them through my TikTok. So, like Christina Schmidt, who of course plays Terry, that's how I started to talk to her. Cassie Steele, which is amazing because I was a big Manny fan, so that was awesome. Some of the actors of like Shameless, Grey's Anatomy, which is really cool because I talk about that one a lot. Some of the actors from Nickelodeon, like I've talked about them, and it was really cool. Is sometimes I'll talk about my different like show ideas, and the actors that I would fan cast see the video, and they're like, "Oh, I would love to be in something like that," and it's just really cool. So I've connected. Then I got to go because of TikTok to Florida a couple weeks ago, and there I got to meet some more of the cast of Degrassi, Chad Michael Murray, which was awesome. The cast of Phil of the Future. So it's connected me with so many different people that it's just been
Oh,
amazing.
it's incredible that the internet can do that. And it's so incredible that there's these fandoms that want to see people like us succeed and want to see fans meet these people who are on the show. That is so freaking
Right?
cool. Can
It's
you
been
give
awesome.
us a story of what it was like, even just one story of what it was like to meet them in Florida?
Yeah. So I went to the convention, and like I said, they had Jay, which is of course Mike. They had Shane, who plays Spinner. They had Ashley, who's Melissa, and then they had Sarah, who played Liberty. And so at first, when I seen them, I had to like compose myself because usually I'm good with meeting other celebrities, but like these are people I grew up watching and I rewatch, and I'm like so in love with the show. So I saw them. I'm like, hey, I'm really a big fan of the show. I'm a content creator. I talk about you guys all the time. And they were just so down to earth that within the matter of minutes, it was like talking to old friends. Like I would see them, it was a whole weekend thing. So I would see them like later in the weekend. They'd be like, hi, Brie. I'm like, hi, Mike. Like we're on first name basis. And it was just so awesome. I actually got a picture with all of them, and it's right here. I don't know if you can see it,
It's beautiful.
but it was just so cool. So like then we end up like all hanging out, going to like this kind of like mixer party type thing, which was really cool because who would think ever that you'd be going and partying with the cast of Degrassi? But it was just so cool to me to see how down to earth they are. Like,
Oh.
and it was very interesting to me too when they were doing the panel. They were talking about how when they go to the US, it's always like a shock for them because everyone in the US is like, oh my gosh, it's the cast of Degrassi. And they go crazy. And in Canada, it's just like, oh yeah, I know that guy. I think he's on a show.
That is incredible. I know the US fans of Degrassi show up. Over 80% of my audience is from the US, which is also astounding to me that it has such this big reach over in the US. So I can totally understand what that's like for them.
Yeah.
While you were there, you also told them your Degrassi reboot idea. So I have two questions for you. One, first, can you give us just like the Cliff Note version of your idea and then tell me their reaction to it?
Of course. So I always thought that'd be great to get like the cast of the next generation to come back. Now they're all adults. We grew up with them. Now we're adults. And to see them kind of like navigating just that normal adult life. And a big storyline that I thought would be really cool to see would be Liberty coming back to the school, being like maybe a principal. And then her son that she gave up for adoption, the son she had with JT, also going to that school. And like oftentimes when kids are adopted and they're becoming a teenager, they kind of want to know where they came from. So they start doing a lot of searching. So he searches for her, finds out, oh wow, she's like literally right in front of me. He starts to learn more about her. JT, obviously, since he's passed away, he learns stories about him. And then like Toby also works at the school. Who better to teach him about his dad than his dad's best friend? We get like a Manny and Jay wedding. We just get to see them all come back and be in different stages of their life. So I told the cast that. And Sarah especially was like, oh, I need it. She's like, this would be great. I definitely come back. Like, I would love it. And it was to the point where I told her this when I was talking to her one on one. And she even brought up the idea when she was doing the panel later that day. So right, I was like, oh my God. So she really liked it. Mike really liked it. He's like, oh yeah. He was talking about how he would love to see Jay become a dad. So maybe that could be a storyline. And that was something I was thinking of. I told them they really all loved it, and they're all like, listen, it was such a great time in our lives, we would definitely be down to come back for a reboot.
Oh, that always feels so freaking good to hear. And how do you
Right.
think fans would feel about that kind of reboot?
So I was really interested in that because that was another thing they said. They're like, oh, well, if there's an audience for it, I feel like that would be something that would be able to happen. So I'm like, oh, I got you. So I did like a little Cliff Note version on my TikTok, like, okay, this is what I would write in, this is what would happen. And the fans were loving it. I think the video got to like over around like 400,000 views, but like over 2,000 comments of people just saying like, oh, we need it, this would be great, who we need to talk to get this done. So I think that right now, especially, nostalgia is really big. We see so many shows come back. Like almost every show you can think of has either came back or in the process of coming back. So I definitely think there would be a big audience for that.
Yeah, especially since the Degrassi fans have been primed. We heard about this reboot announcement 2 years ago, then it fell to the wayside. Like, we are eager for it, and I think majoritively fans would love to see exactly what you're saying of Liberty's son coming back to the school.
Yes, it would be such a good storyline because it would teach you, like, okay, this is someone who probably, like, subconsciously she thought about, but she hasn't, like, consciously thought about what that would look like in her life. You know, like, she went on. And then, like, to have this just come back and just have all those moments, like, of her and JT flooding back, it'd be something for her to adjust to, something for the son to adjust to, because he had the, adopted parents who, for all intents and purposes, are his parents, but then he
Yeah.
also has, like, where he came from. So I think it'd
Oh,
be a great storyline.
I think so too. You've recapped for us Liberty's son. She would be the principal. You've talked about Toby would come back, kind of teaching Liberty's son about his dad. Tell me a little bit more. You kind of touched on it. Manny and Jay, how do you think they would fit into your idea?
So I think that we would start the pilot idea with a Manny and Jay wedding. Because how did we not get that? Like, we got a Spinner and Emma wedding, but not a Manny and Jay. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so I would definitely start off with that because that would be an opportunity for the whole cast to get back together because there's like this big event and they haven't seen each other in years. And then that was a way that I was like, okay, we can see everyone together for the first episode. And then after that, if not everyone wants to be like a series regular, at least we saw them back for that. So I think that would be something I would do. I also, since he wants to see himself as a dad, I definitely have like them have a pregnancy in there somewhere. Emma and Spinner, sorry, they're broken up. Like, yeah.
I think everyone's okay with that. I think everyone's okay. Would any of their former love interests come back?
So Sean, it's inevitable. Like Sean has to come back. So I would love to see Sean come back. Maybe he has like a teenage son that he recently found out about that goes to Degrassi too. So you get that new age in there. And then I know when I was talking to Shane, he was like, "Oh, I always wondered if like Spinner still thinks about Jane." So it's like that could be something. But I'm also like him and Terry. I would love to see that flow because it was like in the beginning they had a little something, but then he went with Paige, and so I thought about that being a storyline too. So there's a lot of room. I want Craig to come back and maybe not be as toxic, but still maybe a wee bit toxic. It is drama, so
Yeah.
there's so many characters that I'm like, oh, this would be a good storyline. Oh, I would love to see this one come back, but definitely Emma and Sean are like endgame. They have to be at
Yeah, they
this.
have to be. I love that.
Yeah.
A healed Craig Manning. I think the world needs to see it. And I think
Right.
you're right about Spinner and Terry because that's like we've been yearning to see their relationship. We wish we got to just see them a little bit longer. So I agree with that. What about Jack Simpson? Is he going to play a part in your reboot?
Oh, of course. So I actually, because I started writing it, right? So I actually said I would love to see him be the opposite of Emma. So like that way, Toby's, he's a teacher there or whatever, and he's like, I cannot believe this is Emma's brother. Like you are literally like, I want him to be the J of the group. Like I want him to be a troublemaker. So it's just like the polar opposite of Emma. Like you had Emma who, yeah, she was annoying at times, but didn't really do anything bad versus this character, her little brother, and it's like polar opposites. And it's just like he's giving Toby a run for his money.
Wow. Okay. I'm already eager to watch this reboot idea. Okay, so you have this idea, you present it to the Degrassi cast at a Comic-Con, you share it online, and then you start working on it. What stage are you at in working on this idea?
So I'm on the pilot episode, and it's been really fun to like be able to write something that I know like people are actually gonna like people are actually asking for. And it's so fun for me to like write it and actually picture like what the characters will look like doing this. And so I'm doing the pilot episode right now. I'm hoping once I finish that, I can kind of like maybe send it off. I know before when I talked to Sarah, she's like, "Oh, when the pilot's done, let me know. Like I want to read it." So I'm hoping if I get it done and I'm able to maybe send it out to them or find someone who's worked on the show and send it to them, maybe something could come of it.
Oh, I really love that. I think the universe is on your side here. You're at the right place at the right time. You met the right people who would be the stars of this reboot. They're interested in it. I really believe that it could happen. What is your if you could look at the end of this, what do you hope that all of this becomes?
I hope this all becomes like an actual reboot, something like how they did Fuller House. I thought Fuller House was a beautiful reboot. Like it was done perfect. You had like their kids. So it did draw in a cast that didn't watch or a audience that didn't watch originally Full House, but they also had all the original characters. So like us who grew up watching it, we were able to identify. So it was like both of those. I would love to have something like that where it's like teens of today could look at these characters like Liberty's son or Jack and be like, okay, that's like me. But then all of us who grew up watching the original, well, not the original, but the next generation
Oh
cast
yeah.
can be like, oh wow, they're in the stages that we're in. Like some of them have kids, some of them are single, some of them are struggling because being an adult in 2025 is something. So it's like I want to be able to have a show that people can identify with the way that we all identified with Degrassi because it meant so much.
I love that so much. Bree, I am rooting for you, and that's everything I wanted to know about this reboot idea you had, how you got into this thing in the first place. The number one thing I need to ask you is where can people find you if they want to watch your videos about the frickin' Degrassi reboot?
Yeah, so if you want to watch the videos about that, you can find me on my TikTok. It's just Bree_always. And it's actually pinned to my profile right now. So if you go on there, you'll be able to read a little bit about what I want the reboot to be, and you'll see all my other content there as well.
Amazing. Bree, that's it. We've accomplished it. Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. This is
Oh my God,
amazing.
thank you for asking me. I love it. Thank you
Oh,
so much. I love all your content. So everything you do is amazing.
oh, thank you so much.
All right, thank
Awesome.
you.
Great to meet you.
Great to
Bye.
meet you too. Bye.
Thank you so much to Bree for coming on the Degrassi Kid podcast and telling us about her idea. I think this reboot is going to be so cool, and I really hope that we get to see it someday. This episode was created as part of the Degrassi Kid Network, where once a month I want to connect Patreon subscribers to content creators that celebrate our favorite show and make content about this thing that we love. So you can find Bree on TikTok at justbree_always and see her videos. And of course, we also want to say a huge thank you to our Patreon subscribers who made this episode possible. That shout out is going to Laura Solis and Juliet, who joined our Patreon community for the very first time. Welcome, we're so happy to have you. And our long-term Patreon subscribers, including Jolene, Catherine, Amber, Angelica, Christopher, Degrassi CSI, Mundo Man 333, Nicholas, Sarah J, Shannon, Alyssa, Angie, Becca, Billy, Blueberry, Bridget, Brittany, Katrina, Courtney, Dave, D, Evie, Gina, Jess, Joe, Joey, Casey, Kristen, Layla, Laura, Lizzie, Megan, Mina, Nikki, Rachel, Racine, Sarah, Sam, Stephanie, Taylor, Brittany, Cosmo, Darcy, Jess, Kennedy, Lindsay, Randy, Alana, Chantel, Chrissy, Emily, Glenn, Honey, Jamie, Lizzie Games, Mackenzie, Mike, Mix Lucy, Sarah, Shane, Sanita, and Tierney. Thank you so, so much for being a part of the Degrassi Kid Patreon. I hope you loved this episode, and hopefully someday we get to see this amazing reboot idea. Okay, thank you. Bye.
I know I can make it through. I know I can make it through.